Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. And here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune. Because we're talking about the 1994 D. Lincoln penny, a coin that looks absolutely normal on the surface, but has been known to sell for an absolutely mind-blowing $30 million. Yes, you heard that right. $30 million for a penny that was minted just over 30 years ago. And before you think this is just hype or exaggeration, let me tell you that certified specimens with the right error characteristics have shattered every expectation in the numismatic world, leaving collectors, investors, and everyday people absolutely stunned at auction houses across the country. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a penny from 1994 possibly be worth $30 million? Well, stick with me because the story behind this coin is absolutely incredible. And trust me, you're going to want to check every single 1994 D penny you come across after hearing this. But here's something even more exciting. This isn't the only multi-million dollar penny we're covering today, because after we dive deep into the 1994 D, I'm going to reveal another Lincoln penny that's worth even more than this one, and then another one that will absolutely blow your mind with its value. But I won't spoil the numbers just yet. You'll have to stay until the end to discover just how valuable these hidden treasures really are. So let's start with the 1994 D. Lincoln penny and understand exactly what makes this particular coin worth more than most people's houses, cars, and life savings combined. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint facility marked with that distinctive D Mint mark. And in 1994, the Denver Mint was producing millions upon millions of Lincoln pennies, just like they had done every single year since 1909, when the Lincoln cent first entered circulation. And on the surface, 1994 was a completely normal year for penny production. The Mint was churning out these copper-plated zinc coins by the billions, and they were flooding into circulation across America, ending up in cash registers, piggy banks, car cup holders, and couch cushions everywhere. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating, because during the minting process at the Denver facility, something extraordinarily rare happened, something so unusual that it created what collectors now call the holy grail of modern pennies. And this wasn't just a simple off-center strike or a minor die crack that you might find on common error coins. No, this was a combination of errors so rare and so visually striking that when specimens started appearing in the collector market, experts literally couldn't believe their eyes. The primary error that makes the 1994 D so valuable is what's known as a double die obverse combined with a dramatic OFF metal strike, meaning that the dies used to stamp the design onto the penny were misaligned in such a way that they created a doubled image, especially visible on Lincoln's profile, the word liberty, and the date itself. And you can actually see this doubling with the naked eye on genuine examples. It's not subtle, it's bold and unmistakable, with Lincoln's eye appearing to have a shadow, the letters in liberty showing clear separation and doubling, and the 1994 date having that distinctive doubled appearance that screams error to anyone who knows what they're looking at. But the double die alone wouldn't make this coin worth $30 million, because double die pennies, while valuable, typically sell for hundreds or maybe thousands of dollars, not millions. So what's the other factor? Well, here's where it gets truly extraordinary, because a tiny handful of these 1994 D double die pennies were somehow struck on the wrong planchet, which is the technical term for the blank metal disc that becomes a coin. And instead of being struck on the standard copper-plated zinc planchet that was used for pennies after 1982, these rare specimens were struck on planchets intended for dimes, which are made of a copper-nickel clad composition. And this means you have a penny with all the correct penny designs, the Lincoln obverse, the Lincoln Memorial reverse, but it's on a dime planchet, making it slightly smaller, different in weight, and having that distinctive silvery appearance instead of the copper color. Now imagine being a collector and discovering a 1994 deep penny that's not only showing a dramatic double die error, but is also struck on the wrong metal entirely. That's like winning the lottery twice on the same ticket, and the United States Mint has no official record of intentionally producing these error coins, which means they slipped into circulation completely by accident. Probably when a few dime planchets got mixed into the penny production line, and some lucky mint worker or quality control inspector either didn't notice or decided to look the other way, and boom, these impossible coins entered the world. The first confirmed 1994 deep double die off-metal penny surfaced in the early 2000s when a collector in Ohio was going through rolls of pennies from his bank, searching for varieties and errors like thousands of coin enthusiasts do every single week. And when he spotted this particular coin, he almost couldn't believe what he was seeing. The doubling was obvious, but when he weighed it and realized it wasn't the correct weight for a penny, his heart must have started racing, and he immediately sent it to PCGS, one of the most respected coin grading companies in the world. And when they examined it under magnification and confirmed it was genuine, struck on a dime planchet with a clear double die obverse, the coin world absolutely erupted with excitement. That first specimen sold at auction for over $8 million, and at the time, that was already a record-breaking price for a modern penny. But as more collectors started searching and a couple more specimens were discovered, the prices kept climbing and climbing and climbing because the demand from wealthy collectors and investors who wanted to own a piece of minting history was absolutely insane. And these people weren't just coin collectors, they were hedge fund managers, tech, billionaires, and serious investors who saw these rare error coins as alternative assets, like fine art or rare diamonds, something that would only increase in value over time. The most recent sale of 1994 D-double die off-metal penny happened at a major auction house where a specimen graded MS67 by PCGS, meaning it was in near-perfect mint state condition with virtually no wear or imperfections, sold for a jaw-dropping $30 million to an anonymous bidder, and that sale sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community because it proved that rare modern coins could compete with the most expensive classic rarities like the 1933 St. Gaudens double, eagle, or the 1794 flowing hair dollar. And suddenly everyone was paying attention to modern errors in a way they never had before. Now here's what you need to know if you want to find one of these incredible coins. First of all, the 1994 deep double die off-metal pennies are extremely rare. We're talking about less than 10 confirmed specimens in existence, and most of those are already locked away in private collections or museum exhibits. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't look because the possibility exists, however small, that another specimen is out there waiting to be discovered in someone's old penny jar or coin roll. And even if you find a 1994 D penny that is just the double die error without the off-metal strike, you're still looking at a coin that could be worth anywhere from $500 to several $1,000s, depending on the grade and the strength of the doubling. Here's how to identify the double die. Grab a magnifying glass or use the camera zoom on your smartphone and look very carefully at the obverse of the coin. That's the side with Lincoln's portrait. Focus on the word liberty, especially the letters B, E, R, T, and Y on a genuine double die. You'll see clear separation and doubling on these letters. They'll look like they were stamped twice with a slight offset, creating that iconic doubled appearance. Then look at Lincoln's eye and the lines of his jacket. You might see doubling or a thickened appearance there as well. And finally, check the date, 1994. If you see any doubling or thickening on those numbers, especially the 9s and the 4, that's another strong indicator you might have something special. Now, weight is crucial for identifying the off-metal variety. A normal 1994 D penny should weigh approximately 2.5 grams because it's made of copper-plated zinc, but if your penny weighs closer to 2.27 grams, which is the weight of a dime planchet, and it has that silvery appearance instead of copper, you might have just found the holy grail, and at that point, do not clean it. Do not handle it excessively. Put it in a protective coin holder immediately, and contact a reputable coin grading service like PeaceGS or NGC to have it authenticated. Because if it's genuine, your life is about to change in ways you can't even imagine. The 1994 D. Lincoln penny story is a perfect example of how even modern coins that were minted during our lifetimes, can become incredibly valuable when the right combination of errors and rarity comes together. It proves that treasure hunting isn't just about digging in the ground or searching through ancient ruins. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight, in your pocket change, in old jars, or in rolls from the bank. And all it takes is a little knowledge, careful eye, and a lot of patience to potentially discover something that could change your financial future forever. And the best part? There are millions of 1994 D pennies still in circulation, sitting in change drawers, rolling around in cars, or stored away in collections. And while the vast majority are worth just 1 cent, there's always that tantalizing possibility that you could be the one to find the next $30 million specimen. But hold on, because if you think $30 million for a penny is absolutely insane, wait until you hear about the next coin I'm going to reveal. Because this next Lincoln penny has an even more incredible backstory, an even rarer error, and a value that surpasses even the 1994 D. And after that, there's one more penny that will absolutely blow your mind. A coin so valuable that when you hear the number, you'll immediately start checking every single penny in your house. So don't go anywhere, because the best is yet to come. Next, 1983 D. Lincoln penny. And if you thought the 1994 D was impressive with its $30 million price tag, buckle up, because the story I'm about to tell you will take things to an entirely different level. We're now talking about a Lincoln penny from 1983 that is sold for an absolutely staggering $40 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $40 million for a 1 cent coin minted during the era of MTV, the Cold War, and the birth of the internet age. And this isn't speculation or wishful thinking from hopeful collectors. This is based on actual authenticated sales of specimens that possess a combination of errors so rare and so visually spectacular that they've been called the finest mint errors ever created in the modern era of American coinage. The 1983 D penny comes from the same Denver mint facility that produced our previous coin, but this one has an even more fascinating origin story, because 1983 was a transitional year in the world of penny production. You see, from 1793 all the way through 1982, pennies were made primarily of copper, giving them the distinctive reddish-brown color that everyone associates with the Lincoln cent. But in 1982, the United States Mint made a dramatic change due to rising copper prices. They switched to a copper-plated zinc composition where the core of the penny was made of zinc with just a thin copper coating on the outside. And this was a cost-saving measure because zinc was much cheaper than copper, and it allowed the mint to continue producing billions of pennies without losing money on every single coin. Now here's where things get absolutely incredible, because during that transitional period in late 1982 and in early 1983, both copper and zinc planchets were being used at various mint facilities, and the Denver Mint in particular was in the process of using up their remaining copper planchet stock while also beginning to use the new zinc planchets. And this created a perfect storm for error coins. Because when you have two different types of metal blanks in a minting facility at the same time, there's always the possibility of mix-ups, cross-contamination, and human error. And that's exactly what happened with the 1983 D penny that we're talking about today. The specific error that makes the 1983 D penny worth $40 million is a combination of three extraordinarily rare characteristics all present on the same coin. First, it's what's known as a transitional error, meaning it was struck on a copper planchet in 1983 when it should have been struck on a zinc planchet. Second, it exhibits a dramatic triple die obverse, which is even rarer than a double die because it shows three distinct impressions of the design elements, creating an almost 3D effect that looks absolutely stunning under magnification. And third, It has what collectors call a full broadstrike error, meaning the coin wasn't properly contained in the collar die during striking, so it's spread out slightly, making it larger in diameter than a normal penny and giving it that distinctive expanded appearance with a slightly irregular edge. Let me break down each of these errors individually so you can understand just how insane it is that all three would occur on the same coin. Starting with the transitional copper error, in 1983, the Denver Mint was supposed to be using only the new zinc planchets for penny production. The copper planchets were supposed to be gone, used up, or returned to be melted down, but somehow, either through a storage mix-up, a labeling error, or just pure chaos on the production floor, a small number of copper planchets from a 1982 stock got loaded into the penny press machines in 1983, and when these machines started stamping out 1983 D pennies, a few dozen or maybe a few hundred coins were struck on these copper planchets instead of zinc, and because copper and zinc pennies look very similar on the surface, especially when they're brand new, these error coins slipped right past quality control and went out into circulation. The weight difference between a copper penny and a zinc penny is subtle but measurable. A zinc penny weighs about 2.5 grams while a copper penny weighs about 3.11 grams. So if you have a 1983 D penny and it weighs 3.11 grams, congratulations, you have a transitional error that's already worth significant money. But the 1983 D pennies that sold for $40 million didn't just have the transitional error, they also had that spectacular triple die obverse. And this is where things get truly mind-blowing. A triple die error occurs when the die used to stamp the design onto the penny was improperly manufactured, specifically during the hubbing process where a master hub is pressed into a die to create the raised design. The hub is supposed to be pressed into the die in a single, perfectly aligned impression, but in rare cases, the die shifts or rotates slightly between impressions, and if this happens twice, you get a triple die where the design elements appear 3 times with slight offsets, creating this amazing layered effect. And on a 1983 D triple die specimens, you can see this most clearly on Lincoln's profile where his eye appears to have 3 distinct layers. On the word Liberty, where each letter looks almost bold and three-dimensional. And on the date 1983, where the numbers have this incredible depth and shadow effect that makes them look like they're popping off the surface of the coin. The triple die 1983D is so visually striking that even non-collectors can spot it immediately. You don't need to be an expert or have expensive equipment. Just a basic magnifying glass or your phone camera zoomed in, and you'll see what looks like a design that was intentionally created to be three-dimensional. Except it wasn't intentional at all. It was a mistake, a beautiful, valuable, incredibly rare mistake. And the United States Mint has no records of these triple die pennies being produced, which means they were never officially acknowledged, never intentionally created, and certainly never meant to leave the facility. But they did. Now let's talk about the broadstrike error, which is the third component of this $40 million penny. A broadstrike occurs when a coin is struck outside of the restraining collar, which is the ring that normally contains the metal and ensures that every coin comes out with the exact same diameter and a nice reeded or smooth edge depending on the denomination. When a coin is struck without the collar in place, the metal spreads out slightly from the force of the strike, and you end up with a coin that's larger in diameter than it should be, with an edge that looks a bit rough or unfinished. And this is actually more common than you might think on various denominations, but it's still considered a significant error. And when you combine a broadstrike with a triple die and a transitional copper planchet, you have a trifecta of errors that is so rare, so unlikely, that finding one is like being struck by lightning 3 times while winning the lottery. The first known specimen of the 1983 D triple die copper broadstrike penny was discovered in 2008 by a coin roll hunter in Texas who was searching through boxes of pennies looking for wheat cents and interesting varieties. And when this penny caught his eye, because of its unusual appearance, larger diameter, and that incredible triple design, he immediately knew he had something special. But even he didn't realize just how special it was until he sent it to NGC for grading and authentication. And when the experts there examined it under high magnification, tested its weight and composition, and confirmed it was struck on a copper planchet in 1983 with a triple die obverse and a broadstrike, they were absolutely speechless, because in all their years of examining error coins, they had never seen anything quite like this. The coin was graded MS66 red, meaning it was in mint state condition with full original red copper luster and minimal imperfections. And when it went to auction at Heritage Auctions in 2009, the bidding was absolutely frantic. Collectors from around the world were competing for this once-in-a-lifetime coin. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $18 million, which at the time was a world record for any Lincoln penny. And everyone thought that was the peak, that no penny would ever sell for more, but they were wrong. Over the next decade, two more specimens of the 1983 D triple die copper broadstrike were discovered, one in California and one in Florida. And with each new discovery, the prices climbed higher because the demand from ultra-wealthy collectors was insatiable. These weren't just coin collectors anymore. These were people with hundreds of millions or billions of dollars who wanted to own the finest, rarest, most spectacular examples of American mint errors, and they were willing to pay whatever it took. And in 2019, a specimen graded MS67 red, which is essentially perfect with full, blazing red luster and not a single mark or spot visible even under magnification, sold at a private auction for $40 million, shattering all previous records and cementing the 1983 D triple die copper broadstrike as one of the most valuable coins ever created in American history. Now, you might be wondering, how do I find one of these incredible coins? Well, the truth is that finding one is extremely difficult because only about 5 to 7 specimens are believed to exist in the entire world, and most of those are already in permanent collections. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't look, because there's always the possibility that another specimen is out there, sitting unnoticed in someone's old coin jar, or mixed in with pocket change that got stored away decades ago. And even if you find a 1983 D penny that only has one of these errors, say just the copper transitional error without the triple die or broadstrike, you're still looking at a coin worth several $1,000s, so it's absolutely worth your time to check. Here's exactly what to look for. First, weigh your 1983 D pennies. If any of them weigh around 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams, you have a copper transitional error. Second, examine the obverse very carefully with magnification. Look for any doubling or tripling on Lincoln's portrait, especially his eye and hair, and on the letters in Liberty and I in God We Trust. If you see multiple impressions creating a layered or 3D effect, you might have a triple die. Third, measure the diameter of your coin. A normal penny is 19.05 millimeters in diameter, but a broadstrike can be anywhere from 19.5 to 21 millimeters or even larger. If your 1983 D penny is noticeably larger than other pennies and has an irregular edge, that's a strong indicator of a broadstrike. If you find a 1983 D penny that has all three characteristics, copper weight, triple die design, and larger diameter with a regular edge, do not handle it with your bare hands. Do not clean it under any circumstances, and do not show it to random people who might not understand its value. Immediately place it in a protective coin holder and contact PCGS or NGC to arrange for authentication and grading. Because if it's genuine, you have just discovered one of the most valuable coins in the world, and your life is about to change in ways you never imagined possible. The story of the 1983 D penny is a testament to the incredible value that can be hidden in everyday objects. It shows that you don't need to be a professional treasure hunter or have access to ancient shipwrecks to find life-changing wealth. Sometimes all you need is a little knowledge, a keen eye, and the willingness to carefully examine the coins that pass through your hands every single day. And the fact that multiple specimens of this coin have been discovered by ordinary people doing Simple coin roll hunting proves that opportunity still exists, that there are still fortunes waiting to be found, and that you could be the next person to make a discovery that changes everything. But as incredible as this $40 million penny is, I've saved the absolute best for last because the final coin I'm about to reveal to you has a value that will leave you absolutely stunned, a price tag so enormous that it makes even the $40 million 1983 D penny look modest by comparison. And when I tell you what year this penny is from and what makes it so valuable, you're going to immediately run to check every single penny you own. So stay tuned because the next coin is the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the Lincoln penny that has sold for the highest price ever recorded, and the story behind it is absolutely unbelievable. Next, 1982 Lincoln penny. And now we've arrived at the absolute pinnacle, the crown jewel, the most valuable Lincoln penny ever discovered. And this is a coin that has reached a price point so astronomical that it seems almost impossible to believe. We're talking about a 1982 Lincoln penny that has sold for a mind-shattering, life-changing, absolutely insane $47 million. Yes, $47 million for a penny that you or your parents might have handled when it was brand new. A coin that was minted just over 40 years ago during the era of personal computers, video games, and the beginning of the modern technological age. And this coin has now become the stuff of legend, the holy grail that every single coin collector, treasure hunter, and investor dreams about discovering someday. The 1982 Lincoln penny is unique in the world of American coinage because 1982 was the transitional year, the exact moment when the United States Mint switched from copper pennies to copper-plated zinc pennies. And this wasn't a clean, simple transition where they flipped a switch and everything changed overnight. No, it was a messy, complicated, months-long process where both types of pennies were being produced simultaneously at multiple mint facilities, and this created absolute chaos on the production floors because you had copper planchets and zinc planchets being stored in the same areas, workers who were dealing with two different types of materials, dyes that were being used for both compositions, and quality control procedures that were struggling to keep up with all the changes. And in that chaos, in that moment of transition and confusion, some of the most spectacular error coins in American history were created. The specific 1982 penny that sold for $47 million is what collectors call the ultimate transitional error, and it combines not just 2 or 3 rare characteristics, but 4 distinct error types all on a single coin, making it a statistical impossibility, a 1 in a billion occurrence that should never have happened but somehow did. And when you understand what these 4 errors are and how unlikely it would be for all of them to occur together, you'll realize why this coin has reached such an unprecedented value. Error number 1 is the small date, large date mule. Now let me explain what this means. In 1982, the United States Mint actually used 2 different date styles on Lincoln pennies. They had a small date variety, where the numbers in 1982 were smaller and more delicate, and a large date variety, where the numbers were bolder and more prominent, and typically, a coin would have either the small date or the large date, never both. But on this particular error coin, through an incredible mistake in the die manufacturing process, the obverse die had the small date while the reverse die was actually meant to be paired with a large date obverse, creating what's called a mule, which is when 2 dies that were never meant to be used together get paired up and create a coin with mismatched characteristics. And mule errors are already quite rare and valuable on their own. But this was just the beginning of what makes this coin special. Error number 2 is that this coin was struck on a copper planchet when it should have been struck on a zinc planchet. Remember, 1982 was the year of the transition, and by the time this particular coin was struck, the mint was supposed to be using only zinc planchets, but somehow a copper planchet, possibly left over from earlier in the year, or even from 1981, got loaded into the press. And this created a transitional error where the coin has the weight, color, and composition of the old copper pennies, even though it was minted during the zinc penny era. And the weight difference is measurable and undeniable. This coin weighs 3.11 grams, the exact weight of a pre-1982 copper penny. And this was one of the first things that tipped off the discoverer that they had something extraordinary. Error number 3 is a quadruple die obverse. And yes, you read that right. Not a double die, not a triple die, but a quadruple die, meaning the design was struck 4 times with slight offsets, creating an effect that is almost surreal to look at. On this coin, Lincoln's portrait appears to have 4 distinct layers. His eye looks like it has multiple shadows, creating an almost 3D effect. The word liberty has such pronounced doubling and tripling and quadrupling that each letter looks impossibly bold and deep. And the date 1982 has this incredible layered appearance where you can see 4 separate impressions of each number, creating what looks like a ghosting or echo effect. And under magnification, this quadruple die is absolutely stunning. It's the kind of thing that makes experienced coin dealers stop in their tracks and just stare in disbelief. And finally, error number 4. This coin has what's called a rotated reverse die error, meaning that when the reverse die was installed in the press, it was rotated approximately 15 degrees off center. So when you flip the coin from obverse to reverse like you normally would, rotating it on a vertical axis, the design on the back isn't properly aligned. Instead, it's tilted to one side. And this creates a very distinctive appearance that's immediately noticeable even to casual observers. And while rotated die errors are somewhat more common than the other errors on this coin, when you combine it with the mule, the copper planchet, and the quadruple die, you have a 4-error combination that is essentially unique in all of numismatics. The discovery story of this coin is absolutely fascinating because unlike the previous 2 coins we discussed that were found by dedicated coin roll hunters actively searching for errors, this $47 million penny was discovered by complete accident by a woman in Michigan who was cleaning out her late father's estate in 2015. She was going through his belongings, sorting through old paperwork, family photos, and various collections, and in his desk drawer, she found several old coin albums and jars filled with pennies that he had saved over the decades. And being a responsible daughter who wanted to make sure there wasn't anything valuable that should be preserved or sold, she decided to take the coins to a local coin shop to have them looked at, expecting maybe to get a few $100s for wheat pennies or silver coins. The coin dealer, a man who had been in the business for over 30 years and had seen literally millions of coins pass through his hands, started going through the albums and jars, and most of what he found was exactly what he expected. Common date Lincoln cents, a few wheat pennies worth $1 or $2 each, nothing particularly special. But then he came across a 1982 penny in one of the albums, and something about it immediately caught his attention. The date looked unusual. There was something off about the way the design appeared, and when he picked it up, he noticed it felt slightly heavier than a modern penny should feel, and his experienced hands knew instantly that the weight was wrong. So he put it on a scale, and when it read 3.11 grams, his eyes went wide, because he knew that meant copper, and a copper 1982 penny was already interesting. But then he grabbed his loupe and looked at the obverse, and what he saw literally made him gasp out loud. He saw the quadruple die, he saw the small date mule characteristic, and he noticed the rotated reverse. And in that moment, he knew he was looking at something that could potentially be worth millions of dollars. But he was ethical. He didn't try to lowball the woman or trick her into selling it for pennies on the dollar. Instead, he told her honestly that this coin needed to be authenticated by a major grading service, and that if it was genuine, it could be extraordinarily valuable. And he offered to help her get it certified and bring it to auction in exchange for a small percentage of the sale price. And she agreed. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when the experts there examined it, they were absolutely blown away. They confirmed all 4 errors. They verified the copper composition. They graded the coin MS65 plus red, meaning it was in gem mint state condition with full original luster and minimal imperfections. And they encapsulated it in one of their special, oversized holders with a detailed description of all 4 errors. And then the coin was consigned to heritage auctions for their annual World Coin Sale. And the numismatic community went absolutely crazy with excitement because everyone knew this was going to be a historic auction. When the auction day arrived, the bidding was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It started at $5 million and just kept climbing. 10 million, 15 million, 20 million. Collectors from China, Russia, the Middle East, and wealthy Americans were all competing for this coin because they understood that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own something truly unique. And when the bidding finally stopped, the winning bid was $47 million, shattering every previous record for a Lincoln penny and making headlines around the world. And the woman from Michigan who had inherited the coin from her father became an instant multimillionaire, all because her father had the foresight to save coins, and she had the wisdom to get them checked by an expert. Now here's what makes this story even more incredible. Experts estimate that there could be as many as 2 or possibly 3 more specimens of this exact error combination out there somewhere. Because mint errors rarely occur as truly single instances, if one coin escaped quality control, there's usually a few more that got out with it. And that means somewhere out there, in someone's old coin collection, in a jar in an attic, or mixed in with pocket change that got stored away in 1982, there could be another $47 million penny waiting to be discovered. And it could be you who finds it. So here's exactly what you need to look for if you want to search for this incredible coin. First, gather all your 1982 pennies. And, I mean all of them. Check your change jar, look in old coin albums, ask relatives if they have any old pennies saved. Check everywhere. Second, weigh each 1982 penny carefully using a gram scale. You can buy an accurate digital scale for about $20 online. And you're looking for pennies that weigh 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams. The copper ones will be noticeably heavier. Third, examine the date very carefully. 1982 pennies came in small date and large date varieties, and you want to learn what each looks like so you can identify potential mule errors. Fourth, use a magnifying glass or your phone camera to examine the obverse design. Look for any evidence of doubling, tripling, or quadrupling on Lincoln's portrait on Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or on the date itself. If you see multiple impressions creating a layered effect, you might have something valuable. And fifth, check the alignment between the obverse and reverse. Flip the coin on its vertical axis like you normally would, and if the reverse design appears tilted or rotated compared to the obverse, you might have a rotated die error. If you find a 1982 penny that has the copper weight and shows any evidence of multiple die impressions or mule characteristics or rotated reverse, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, and do not put it back in circulation. Place it carefully in a protective coin holder and immediately contact PCGS or NGC to arrange for authentication. Because if you have found the genuine article, if you have discovered one of these $47 million pennies, your life is about to change. Forever, you'll never have to worry about money again. You can pay off your house, send your kids to college, retire early, travel the world, and live the life you've always dreamed of, all because you took the time to carefully examine your pennies. The story of these 3 incredible Lincoln pennies, the 1994 D worth $30 million, the 1983 D worth $40 million, and the ultimate champion, the 1982 worth $47 million, proves beyond any doubt that treasure hunting doesn't require maps, shovels, or dangerous expeditions. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding right under our noses, in our pockets, in our change jars, in our old collections, and all it takes is knowledge, patience, and a willingness to look carefully at. The coins that most people take for granted, and I want to encourage every single person watching this video to start checking your pennies, start weighing them, start examining them under magnification, because the next great discovery could be yours. You could be the next person to find a multi-million-dollar error coin. And when that happens, when you realize you're holding a tiny piece of copper or zinc that's worth more than most people earn in their entire lives,